For a long time, the story of mammoth hunting went like this. A dozen spear-wielding hunters charge a full-grown woolly mammoth head-on. They stab it until it falls. Everyone cheers. That story is mostly wrong. The real picture is stranger, more patient, and far more dangerous to get wrong. Because a healthy adult mammoth could weigh over 6 tons. One kick could end a hunter's life in an instant. So ancient humans did not brute force their way through the Ice Age. They outthought it. Start with the animal itself. Woolly mammoths roamed the cold grasslands of Europe, Asia, and North America until roughly 10,000 years ago, with a small population surviving on Wrangel Island until about 4,000 years ago. Verify. They traveled in herds, led by older matriarchs, much like modern elephants. And like elephants, they protected their young fiercely. So how does a group of humans, armed with stone-tipped spears, bring down an animal that size? The answer researchers keep finding at ancient kill sites is simple. They almost never picked a fight with the strongest member of the herd. Archaeologist Gary Haynes, who has spent decades studying mammoth remains across North America, found something telling in site after site. Many of the mammoths associated with human tools were not prime adults. They were young mammoths, old mammoths, or animals already weakened by injury or disease. Vulnerable, not powerful. That is the first piece of the real strategy. Ancient hunters were watching for weakness. A limping mammoth, a calf separated from its herd, an old bull moving slower than the rest. These were not glorious targets, but they were survivable ones. The second piece is the land itself. At the Leaner Ranch site in Arizona, archaeologists uncovered the remains of at least 9 mammoths, killed by Clovis hunters roughly 13,000 years ago, clustered near an ancient waterhole. Verify. Waterholes were natural traps. Mammoths came to drink. Mud slowed their legs. Humans did not need to outrun a mammoth. They needed to outposition it. At the Lang-Ferguson site in South Dakota, a mammoth carcass was found with stone tools driven directly into its bones. Evidence that humans were involved either in the kill itself or in fast, coordinated butchering right after. Verify. Either way, the lesson is the same. This was not chaos. It was choreography. So picture the real scene. Not a charge. A wait. A small group moves along a game trail near a bog or a river crossing. They spot a mammoth struggling in soft ground, or an old animal drifting behind its herd. They do not rush in. They circle. They use the terrain, the mud, the narrow path between rocks, anything that limits the animal's ability to turn and charge. Spears are used at close range, aimed at soft points behind the front legs, sometimes thrust and sometimes thrown with the help of a spear thrower, a tool that added speed and distance to the strike. And here is the counterintuitive twist, the part most retellings leave out entirely. Many researchers now believe a significant number of mammoth kill sites were not kills at all. They were scavenging sites. Gary Haynes and others have argued that some human tool marks on mammoth bones show up on animals that were already dead, perhaps from natural causes, disease, or getting stuck and dying in a bog. Ancient humans, in other words, were sometimes not hunters of mammoths so much as opportunists who arrived after the mammoth had already lost its fight with the world. Telling the difference between a hunted mammoth and a scavenged one from bones alone is genuinely difficult, and archaeologists still debate individual sites case by case. This does not make ancient humans less impressive. It makes them smarter. Why risk a 6-ton animal in its prime when a weakened one, or a dead one, offered the same meat, hide, and bone without the danger? And mammoths offered an enormous amount of all three. A single animal could feed a group for weeks. The bones themselves became building material. At the site of Mazyryk in what is now Ukraine, archaeologist Olga Sofer helped document the remains of dwellings built from mammoth bones, arranged deliberately using skulls, tusks, and leg bones as a kind of Ice Age architecture. Verify. Tusks became tools and art. Hides became shelter and clothing against cold that could fall far below freezing for months at a time. So the mammoth was not just food. It was infrastructure. It was warmth. It was survival stretched across an entire winter. None of this happened by accident, and none of it happened alone. Taking down or processing an animal that size required cooperation. It required people who trusted each other enough to stand near 6 tons of frightened, possibly dying muscle and not panic. It required someone tracking the herd for days, someone reading the mud for signs of a struggling animal, someone remembering which waterhole trapped legs the deepest. This was not a single moment of violence. It was a season-long relationship between a group of humans and the biggest animals on their landscape, built on patience, memory, and an intimate understanding of when an animal was strong and when it was not. So return to that opening image. The dozen hunters charging head-on, spears raised, into a healthy mammoth's path. Replace it with the truth. A handful of humans low to the ground, waiting near a bog at dusk, watching an old mammoth stumble, reading the moment, and moving only when the odds had already shifted in their favor. That was not raw courage. That was calculation passed down and practiced one hunt at a time.